We're about halfway through the 2.0 update for Wuthering Waves, and obviously we're going to be getting Roshia for the second half of the update, but we're also getting Jinhsi's rerun banner. Not only is she the first character to have her own exclusive skin, she's easily one of the strongest characters in the game. So if you've been looking for an updated build guide, I got you. I'm going to be covering exactly how her kit works on top of optimal damage rotation, on top of what weapons to use, what echo sets and stats you're looking for, what teams to use her on, and more. Before getting into it, big shout out to Neko in my server. He's been one of my mods for the longest time, and he's had Jinhsi since day one, so he has all the echoes that he needs for her. So big shout out to him. I appreciate you letting me hop on your account. Let's not waste any time and dive right into it. If you are debating on pulling for Jinhsi, her strengths do include having one of the strongest skills in the game. Her enhanced resonance skill, the last one, not only has one of the coolest animations in the game, but is extremely powerful. And number 2, she has a very easy quick swap playstyle on top of being able to perform some attacks midair. Like I mentioned, she has her own exclusive outfit as well. So if you go into the store and under outfits, you'll find the Peach Blossom outfit, which is cool. So not only do you get the skin, you also get a skin for her weapon on top of a new avatar and a sigil. For Jinhsi's combat roles, she falls under main damage dealer with having higher resonance skill damage, similar to Carlotta, but on the SPECTRO side. And if you want to get her up to max level, here are all the materials you're going to need. The Howler cores you're going to need are going to drop from animal type echoes, so keep that in mind. For your flower material, you're going to need Long's Pearl, which can be found around Mount Firmament, and you can press collection spots, and it'll actually show you where you can pick them up. And for your Overlord boss material, you're going to have to fight the Morning Eggs back in the 1.0 area. For what skills prioritize upgrading on Jinhsi, definitely your resonance skill, then your Forte circuit, your Resonance Liberation, then lastly your normal attack and intro skill. And here are all the materials you're going to need to upgrade all of these skills. Since Jinhsi is a broad blade character, you're going to need the Wave Worn material, which can be found at Forgery Challenges, and you can do these in the 1.0 or 2.0 areas, but note, if you do it in the 1.0 area, you can get those Howler cores you're going to need. And for your Calamity boss material, you're going to need the Sentinel's Dagger from the Jue boss here in Mount Firmament. Note, you can only do this 3 times a week, so if you want to upgrade your skills quickly, you're going to need to use up all of your attempts on Jue. To maximize Jinhsi's damage, we need to understand exactly how her kit works. Jinhsi's Forte bar is considered Incandescence, and she can hold up to 50 stacks, and all nearby resonators in the party gain what's called Eras of Unity. Eras of Unity is how we're going to build these Incandescence stacks. So the first way, anyone on the team that deals attribute damage, including Jinhsi, will get 1 stack, but if the attribute damage that happens counts as a coordinated attack, you actually get an additional 2 stacks, counting as 3. So obviously, coordinated attack characters are really going to help build those incandescent stacks. And note, with her Ultra skill, Temporal Bender, Jinhsi may now gain incandescence via Eras of Unity from damage of the same attribute more effectively at one time every second for 20 seconds. So if you deal damage with another SPECTRO character, for example, you can get increased incandescent stacks. Now, outside the other characters dealing damage to build up her Forte, again, like I said, Jinhsi can also help build up her own incandescent stacks. One way is just by using her attacks. For her normal attack, she can perform up to 4 basic attacks. She has a heavy attack, a mid-air attack, and obviously a dodge counter. With her base resonance skill, Trailing Lights of Eons, you'll dash forward and deal SPECTRO damage, but the main thing is that we want to gain what's called Overflowing Radiance. So if you use Jinhsi's basic attack 4 or her intro skill, you'll gain what's called Resonance Skill Overflowing Radiance within 5 seconds. Now, as you can see, even though my base resonance skill is on cooldown, it actually changes over to a different icon and starts glowing. This is that Overflowing Radiance. Now, if you use the skill, you'll deal SPECTRO damage and enter what's called Incarnation. Now, the 2 big indicators to know whether you've entered Incarnation form or not is number 1, Jinhsi has horns on her head, and number 2, the Forte bar actually changes. Now, when she's in her Incarnation form, all of her normal attacks actually change a little bit. Now, you can still perform the basic attack up to 4 attacks, but now that attack is considered resonance skill damage and can be performed in midair. The resonance skill actually changes to what's called Crescent Divinity. Honestly, the only thing that really changes is the icon in and of itself. You still dash toward the target when you use it and deal SPECTRO damage. Now, she does have a different heavy attack, a dodge, and a dodge counter, but the main thing here is that you can perform the dodge and the dodge counter while you're in midair. I don't know of any other character that actually has this type of moveset where you can be in midair and perform an actual dodge and dodge counter. It's crazy. Just like in her base form where you can perform basic attacks to get the enhanced resonance skill to enter Incarnation mode in and of itself has its own form of that as well. When you're in the Incarnation state and you perform the basic attack 4, you'll gain what's called Ordination Glow, and a couple different things are going to happen. Now, if you continue attacking, you'll follow up with the Incarnation heavy attack, but the main thing here is that the resonance skill is replaced with what's called a Luminous Epiphany. This is the skill that has its own dedicated animation, and this is where we will consume our incandescence. So you can consume up to 50 of it, and with each point, it grants a bonus damage multiplier percentage to the explosion, which is the secondary attack of the resonance skill. I'll cover this a little more when we talk about damage rotation, but all you need to know is that you want to get as much incandescence as you can before you use the enhanced resonance skill attack. Now, after you cast this resonance skill, Jinhsi will gain what's called Unison. The main thing with Unison is that it will be consumed in place of your Concerto energy if it is full. So if you switch from Jinhsi to another character, the cool thing is when you switch back to Jinhsi, she will have full Concerto as well. That's why I mentioned she has a very good quick swap playstyle. As long as you can get your swaps correct, you can put in a lot of damage here. Now, even though her resonance skill does a lot of damage, her resonance liberation is definitely something you don't want to sleep on. Again, you'll deal SPECTRO damage considered resonance liberation damage. For her inherent skills, the first one, Radiant Surge, Jinhsi gains a 20% SPECTRO damage bonus, pretty simple. And the second one, Converged Flash, the damage multiplier of intro skill, Long's Halo, is increased by 50%. And again, the intro skill is important because right when you use it, you can get that overflowing Radiance resonance skill and automatically enter Incarnation mode. For her left and right skill upgrades, you're going to get a crit rate percentage bump and an attack percentage bump. For Jinhsi's best weapon options, her signature Ages of Harvest is easily your best bet. You'll get a flat attack and a crit rate percentage bump, and with this perk, Divine Blessing, note this is rank 1, gain 12% attribute damage bonus. Casting her intro skill gives the equipper Ageless Marking, which grants 24% resonance skill damage bonus for 12 seconds. Obviously, that's already really good for Jinhsi, considering not only her resonance skill, but her Incarnation basic attack deals resonance skill damage. Casting a resonance skill gives the equipper Ethereal Endowment, which grants 24% resonance skill damage bonus for 12 seconds. Obviously, this is a very good sword to have for her. I would highly recommend pulling for her signature Broadblade, but if you decide not to, the standard one, Lustrous Razor, is pretty good as well. You get a flat and attack percentage bump. With this perk, Storm Resolution, you get the percentage increase to your energy regen. When your resonance skill is cast, your resonance liberation damage bonus is increased by a certain percentage, stacking up to 3 times. If you don't have any 5-star Broadblades, don't worry, there are a couple of 4-star ones you can use. The first one being Autumn Trace, which you can get from the Battle Pass. It gives you a flat attack and a crit rate percentage bump, and with this perk, Edge Direction, you get an attack percentage increase every time you deal basic attack or heavy attack damage, which can stack up to 5 times. The next one would be Helios Cleaver. You get a flat attack and an attack percentage bump. With its perk, Plasma Recoiler, within 12 seconds after you use the resonance skill, it increases your attack by a certain percentage, stacking up to 4 times, and this effect can be re-triggered. The last one I'll mention is Waning Redshift. This is from the 4-star weapon series during the 1.3 update. You get a flat attack and an attack percentage bump, and with this perk, Intergalactic Gaze, when you cast your resonance skill, it gives you resonance energy and increases your attack by a certain percentage for 16 seconds. For Jinhsi's best Echo set, you want to stick with 5-piece Celestial Light. Now, I've had multiple people ask me, can I use the new Eternal Radiance set on Jinhsi? I would not recommend it. Now, at 2 pieces, you do get that SPECTRO damage bump, so maybe early on you could do 2-piece Celestial Light and 2-piece Eternal Radiance, but at 5 pieces, this all deals with SPECTRO Frazzle, which Jinhsi cannot proc. Only SPECTRO Rover can at the moment. Now, at 2-piece Celestial Light, you do get the plus 10% to SPECTRO damage, and at 5 pieces, you get an extra 30% for 15 seconds after releasing your intro skill. Now, there's 2 ways to set this up. The first way is by having Jue at your 4-cost Echo with either crit rate or crit damage as the main stat, your 2 3-cost Echoes with SPECTRO damage or attack percentage, and your 2 1-cost Echoes with attack percentage. The second way is by having Jue and the Morning Eggs as both your 4-cost Echoes, obviously Jue as your main, with both of them either having crit rate or crit damage, and then 3 1-cost Echoes with attack percentage. The reason I recommend Jue is because when you cast this Echo, you get what's called Blessing of Time for 15 seconds, which increases the Resonator's resonance skill damage bonus by 16%, and when the Resonator's resonance skill hits the target, it inflicts 16% SPECTRO damage 1 time per second for those 15 seconds, considered as the Resonator's resonance skill damage. Considering Jinhsi's main skills deal resonance skill damage, this is an obvious main cost Echo here. For your Echo substats, you're definitely looking for crit rate and crit damage, resonance skill damage, maybe a little bit of energy regen, and then obviously attack percentage and flat attack. For Jinhsi's best team option, she actually has a very easy free-to-play team, which includes Yuan Wu and either Baizha or Verena as your healer. Even though Yuan Wu can't necessarily buff Jinhsi, he can provide those coordinated attacks and reduce the enemy's vibration strength. Now, as good as a healer as Baizha is, I definitely recommend Verena because her Resonance Liberation can provide even more coordinated attacks, and since those attacks will be considered SPECTRO damage, as long as you have Eras of Unity proc with the Ultra skill, you can gain even more Incandescence stacks. For the Jinhsi premium team at the moment, pairing her up with Zezha and Shorekeeper is the obvious choice. Zezha being able to provide the coordinated attacks on top of the resonance skill damage bump on her outro, but also being another character who can perform attacks midair, so The switch between her and Jinhsi is pretty seamless, and then obviously Shorekeeper giving the healing, the crit rate, and the crit damage bumps. Another coordinated attack option would be replacing Zezha with Yinlin. Yinlin can also provide the coordinated attacks through her Forte circuit, and she does give a Resonance Liberation damage bump on her Ultra skill, which can help out Jinhsi a little bit. Some other character options would be using Mortefi. Even though he buffs heavy attack damage, you'd still be able to have those coordinated attacks. Tao Chi is decent, although I don't like her as a sub DPS. Her Ultra skill does provide more Resonance skill damage technically than somebody like Zezha, or you could look into using someone like Yang Yang as your free-to-play option. Now that we've covered everything else, let's talk about Jinhsi's damage rotation. Now, obviously, you're going to be using either your healer or your sub DPS character, dealing damage, building up those incandescent stacks for Jinhsi. You know, if you decide to use coordinated attacks, again, more the merrier. The main thing is that we want to use Jinhsi's intro skill. Now, if you don't do that, I think that's totally fine. You can still use the basic attack for proc the enhanced resonance skill and still enter Incarnation mode. Either way, whether you do it this way or use the intro skill, we want to use our echo skill right after, because Jue is going to help give us that resonance skill damage bump. Now with the attacks I'm about to mention, remember, as long as you have a character that can deal coordinated attacks, you're still going to be building those incandescent stacks. Now once you've entered Incarnation mode, you can use the next resonance skill, which will dash toward the target. Use the basic attack for. Then at this point, you can use your Resonance Liberation if you have it. It will help build that Concerto and deal damage. And then obviously, we want to follow up with the final Resonance skill, Illuminous Epiphany, dealing the crazy damage. Now remember, after the skill, Jinhsi gains Unison, so when she switches to a different character, she doesn't consume her Concerto, it's still full. Remember that. Now after that, again, we want to use our healer, our sub DPS, build Concerto, and then we want to switch back to Jinhsi using the intro skill and essentially just repeat the steps that I just mentioned. Remember in the beginning of the video that I said she has great quick swap options? Being able to have a skill not consume your Concerto energy is freaking sick. So you can go from Jinhsi to your healer, for example, build up the Concerto, switch back to Jinhsi, use all those attacks, and before you use the final attack, switch to your sub DPS, build that Concerto, get the coordinated attacks in, continue building Incandescence so you can get the max stacks, switch back to Jinhsi, use the intro skill, and then use the final resonance skill to deal the most damage as you possibly can. The main things to note: number one, use your intro skill or your basic attack 4 to enter Incarnation state, and pretty much just spam your resonance skill and your basic attack 4 until you can use the enhanced resonance skill attack. And number two, make sure you have as much incandescent stacks as you can get before you use the enhanced resonance skill. Now, you can switch between your characters without having to use the intros and outro skills if you need to, put up Wu's, Thunder Wedge again or anything like that. Again, I think that's totally fine. But the main thing is that we want to take advantage of as much damage as we can with Incandescent with the enhanced resonance skill. Last thing I want to talk about is Jinhsi's resonance chain, and is it worth going for multiple copies of her? Her S1, Abyssal Ascension. When casting that Incarnation basic attack or the Incarnation version of the resonance skill, Jinhsi gains 1 stack of Herald of Revival, stacking up to 4 times and lasting for 6 seconds. When casting the resonance skill Illuminous Epiphany, the big one, Jinhsi consumes all stacks of Herald of Revival. Each stack increases the damage of resonance skill Illuminous Epiphany by 20%. Her S2, Chrono Frost Repose. Jinhsi restores 50 incandescence while staying out of combat for more than 4 seconds. This effect can only be triggered 1 time every 4 seconds. This is obviously a big one for her, especially if you're going to take a decent amount of time on a character like Zezha or your sub DPS character. Being able to get those max stacks basically just guarantees that your enhanced resonance skill is going to do the most damage possible. Her S3, Celestial Incarnate. Jinhsi gains 1 stack of Immortal's Descendancy after casting intro skill Long's Halo. Each stack of Immortal Descendancy increases Jinhsi's attack by 25%, stacking up to 2 times, lasting 20 seconds. Her S4, Benevolent Grace. When Jinhsi casts Resonance Liberation, Purge of Light, or Resonance skill Illuminous Epiphany, all nearby resonators on the team gain 20% attribute damage bonus for 20 seconds. Her S5, Frostfire Illumination. The damage multiplier of the Resonance Liberation is increased by 120%. And lastly, her S6, Thawing Triumph. The damage multiplier of her resonance skill, Illuminous Epiphany, the big one, is increased by 45%, and the additional damage multiplier gained by consuming Incandescent is increased by 45%. So yeah, that enhanced resonance skill basically turns into a nuke. Overall, I'd say her S1 and S2 are great stopping points, with S1 giving you the enhanced resonance skill damage bump, which is great, and her S2 allowing you to have a guaranteed 50 incandescent is very nice. Her S3 is pretty good as well, giving the attack percentage increase just by doing the intro skill twice, which is nice. The S4 and S5 are okay, and if you want to go all the way to S6, like I said, that enhanced resonance skill is just going to hit like a truck. For my final thoughts, if you're someone who didn't pull for Carlotta and you didn't pull for somebody like Camellia, Jinhsi is the next best option. She's easily one of the top 3 damage dealers in the game, and she's the only SPECTRO main DPS character we have at the moment. And of course, being the first character to have her own exclusive outfit is very nice. But let me know what you guys think in the comments. Are you going to be pulling for Jinhsi, or are you saving your pulls for a character like Roshia? I've said it once and I'll say it again. She's going to be the #1 support character for Camellia main. She's going to be fantastic. I am working on a build guide for Roshia, so stay tuned here on the channel. Or are you skipping on these banners and saving for characters like Phoebe and Brant when they come out in 2.1? In any event, if you enjoyed the video, be sure to drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel, and turn on that bell next to notifications so you don't miss out on any other Wuthering Waves content we're dropping here on the channel. We also live stream here on the channel and then also over on Twitch. That link will be in the description. I know right now we have Twitch drops available for the game, so if you want some extra materials and some Astrite, be sure to stop on by. Also, if you want to join my community, hop in the Discord. We have an entire channel dedicated to Wuthering Waves, so if you want to post anything from images to build guides to anything like that, come on over. We're also talking about other games, including other gacha games, PC tech, anime, and more. Lastly, if you want to help the channel even more, you can look into becoming a member. If you don't know what a membership is, it's essentially like a Twitch subscription. Again, you're going to gain access to the exclusive emotes, the monthly badges, and the big thing on the channel, which is getting access to all my long-form videos early. So if you'd like more information, all you have to do is press the join button next subscribe, and that'll give you a rundown with all the details you need. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been your boy. We'll catch you in the next one.